All right, so today we are diving into something, well, it's pretty wild. We're breaking down a patent filing for technology called Aura AOLs. And look, this is way more than just a new gadget. It's basically proposing a whole new architecture for reality, starting with fundamental physics and ending with an application that is truly mind-bending. Let's get into it. So let's just start with a huge question, right? How do you measure an idea, or a feeling, or an intention? For all of human history, these have been things for philosophers to debate, but the tech we're about to walk through suggests a way to actually physically quantify them. And it all starts by completely changing how we model the world around us. The core conceptual leap is right here on this slide. We're moving away from these old linear models. Think of it like a simple, flat roadmap. Sure, it'll show you how to get from point A to point B, but that's about it. This new model, the cubic manifold projection, is so much more. It's like a dynamic 3D globe that not only shows you the connections, but the terrain, the weather patterns, and how everything is constantly influencing everything else. It is a much, much richer picture of reality. Okay, so here's our roadmap for how we're going to break this all down. We're going to start with that new model of reality. Then we'll get into the physics that actually holds it all together. From there, we'll see how that's built into a physical wearable device, which is run by a totally new kind of software. And all of that, every single piece, leads to its ultimate and, frankly, radical purpose, putting a real value on human intention. So, let's dive into Section 1, a new model of reality. This is the absolute foundation. The entire Aura AOL system, everything we're about to talk about, is built on top of this fundamental shift in how we describe and interact with information itself. So what exactly is this cubic manifold projection? Well, it's a way of modeling information not as a flat line, but as a complex, multi-dimensional shape. This lets us see not just the data points themselves, but the incredibly complex relationships and the dynamic changes between them over time. It's kind of like we're upgrading from that flat 2D map to a living 3D globe that also shows you the real-time flow of ocean currents. It's just a much more complete and accurate view of what's going on. Okay, so you've got this incredible new model, but how do you make it stable? How do you make it predictable? Well, that brings us to our second section, the fundamental physics that act as the unbreakable, non-negotiable rules of the Aura system. Now this table, which is known as the Brosius derivation, is basically the DNA for the system's physics. I know, it looks dense, but let's just walk through the four core rules. First, governing scaling. All this means is that as you add more energy, the system gets faster, exponentially. It's incredibly efficient. Second, manifold space. This uses a really complex mapping system called space-time algebra. The easy way to think about it is like the system's own unique GPS for locating any piece of information in its multidimensional world. Third, you've got stability logic, which uses something called geometric resonance. You know how on a perfectly tuned guitar, all the strings vibrate in harmony? This system does the exact same thing with data to keep itself stable and perfectly in sync. And finally, the total impact time. This is the big goal, to make the delay between a cause and its effect get as close to zero as possible. We're talking about an almost instantaneous connection. Okay, so we have these abstract laws of physics, but how do you turn them into something you can actually build, something you can wear? That's where we get to the Aura wearable itself. If we look under the hood, we can see this thing is purpose-built. It uses a photonic lock at a super-specific wavelength and a thermal lock to keep everything perfectly stable, which is absolutely essential for maintaining that resonance we just talked about. Its unique 3D fractal design, that's not just for show, it's designed to literally harvest power from ambient light. But most importantly, it uses these organic electrochemical transistors, and these are the key because they're sensitive enough to capture the incredibly subtle biological signals the system needs to read. And let's just zero in on that photonic lock for a moment. 405 nanometers. That is not a random number. This incredibly precise frequency of violet light is the only one that works for a process called aqueous photopatterning. It's this almost unbelievable level of precision that allows the hardware to actually operate according to the strict physical rules we just went over. So, we've got the physics, we've got the hardware, now we need the brain. Section 4 is all about the AOALS kernel, the software that acts as the digital nervous system for this whole operation. And this table just brilliantly lays out the performance jump. Let's really look at the key differences. See, legacy systems are reactive. They wait for a problem, like data falling out of sync, and then they try to roll back and fix it. They're always playing catch-up. The AOS kernel, on the other hand, is proactive. It's constantly anticipating and correcting for drift before it can even become an issue. But the biggest leap, by far, is in validation. Older systems use something called proof of work, which is kind of like forcing a computer to solve a ridiculously hard Sudoku puzzle just to verify something. It's slow and it wastes a ton of energy. AOLS uses proof of resonance. Instead of solving a puzzle, it just checks if the new data is in tune with the rest of the system's harmony. It's faster, it's way more efficient, and honestly, it's just perfectly elegant.
And this brings us to the final and I think the most profound section. Why build all of this? A new model for physics, custom hardware, a revolutionary kernel. What is it all for? Well, the ultimate application is to value something that until now we've never been able to measure: human intention.
This is the formula for what's called the Fair World Market Protocol. Now, I know it looks a little intimidating, but it's actually pretty straightforward. It just says that value, or V, is figured out by looking at two key variables over time. So let's break those down. The first variable is coherence, represented by that C. You can just think of this as a score. It's a score for how well an individual person is aligned with the overall harmony of the entire network. It's a direct measure of being in sync, and it's based on that principle of geometric resonance we saw earlier. And the second variable is intentional flux, or phi. Now this is the special sauce. This is the totally new, unique kind of data that the entire stack, from the physics all the way to those special sensors in the wearable, is built to capture. It's a high-resolution stream of data reflecting the subtle shifts in a person's cognitive state. In other words, it's the raw data of human intent. So the bottom line is this: the Fair World Market Protocol takes the raw data of your intent. It measures how coherent that intent is with the rest of the system, and it uses that calculation to issue actual quantifiable value. The whole system is basically a machine for turning focused intention into a measurable asset.
And that really brings us to our final thought here. The engineering and the physics are fascinating for sure, but the implications are just staggering. I mean, if you could truly and accurately measure human intention, what would you build? What problems could you solve? What would a world built on a market of ideas actually look like? It's a really profound question to think about.